Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. Um, I think I'll start with reading out from this fantastic. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. From this fantastic work. It's an unputdownable work. I started reading it while I was on a train from Kannur to Thiruvananthapuram. And even after reaching my hotel, I was like, I cannot put this book down because I have to finish it. I am someone who believes that movies should be made from this book. This would make a wonderful script. And so it's from page number 140, and it goes like this. Those of us born in the dominant caste often wonder why people of marginalized caste are so angry with us. We think that we are redeemed by acknowledging caste exploitation and trying to do our bit to redress it. But people from marginalized caste remember how our ancestors behaved with them. They remember the laborious work at low wages, the forced labor, the grabbing of peasant land and produce, the rape of their women, their little children being forced to work as cattle hands, the terrible beatings and torture, the cruel politics played by the Doras to ensure that the poor do not unite. They know that the children of these Doras have flown to greener pastures, to the city, to the US, to Europe, where they can claim that they have nothing to do with caste. Indeed, where is caste around them, they say. The poor know that the greener pastures are available precisely because of the surplus extracted from their own forefathers. Is it right to forget the past? So I begin here, and one of the intersections that the work deals with is the intersection with caste and gender, but also the intersection between caste and social movements in India in general, particularly within left movements. And it is so important, as bell hooks have time and again reminded us, to understand the interlocking nature of oppression, whether it is in India or whether it is abroad. You have different silos where you have progressive people pocketing together. So you have, let's say, your very progressive left networks where most of the conversation centers around class. And then you have Dalit movements where most of the focus is on caste. And then you have the feminist movement where most of the focus is on fighting patriarchy. But there is very little conversation between these silos. And what is very significant about the work is that it tries to bring together these threads. And in particular, I love those bits where you have interrogated the left movement for its lack of sensitivity in dealing with gender. In particular, I remember this session where you're talking about a leader maybe who you would like to name, who, let me call him as Mr. C, who had his spouse, who's also a person who was very active in the left movement, who would, and the spouse would put out not only his bath water, but would rub him down with soap, towel him up, and serve him food. And then a very young Gita from the book would wonder, are these people even capable of leading a revolution? So you have this bits, and I think throughout the work you can see this intersection of how the leftist movement is interrogated. And before we started this conversation here, we had a small conversation backstage, and she told me that if I ask provocative questions, I will get provocative answers. So I don't know whether this is a provocative question. So when you're someone who have worked with CPIML, and then you moved on to the Ibrahim Pattanam ITCVS. So in each of these movements, how do you place the questioning of patriarchy? Within what is referred to as the progressive left, within what you have seen in the villages, within your own movement centered in Ibrahim Pattanam and elsewhere?
I think I had an advantage. I first fought patriarchy at home. People who fight patriarchy, who come, shout slogans on the streets and join women's organizations and fight patriarchy, and don't fight at home. We'll never learn to fight elsewhere. Now, my first fight with patriarchy was in my own house. So when you fight with the people you're closest to, the other people are, a cakewalk. It's so difficult to fight with your parents. It's so difficult to argue with them on every issue and to stand your ground. So once I did that, after that, everything else was, I took it for granted that if I could fight with my parents and stand my ground, I will stand my ground with everybody. Let it be my partner, let it be the party leader, let it be an Ambedkarite leader, anybody I will stand my ground. It was not difficult after that. So, it was also, it was not, see, I was in a peculiar position that it was not just gender and class. I was associated, yes, with the Marxist-Leninist movement, and I came to it from feminism. But very early on with my work in Ibrahimpatnam, I encountered caste in a very direct fashion. I did not know anything. I have not read Ambedkar. I mean, we have published Ambedkar, but that is generally Ambedkar is one of the great leaders. But I have not read Ambedkar or interacted greatly with Dalit activists. But my work in Ibrahimpatnam brought me head on with, so what are you going to do about caste? That was the question that I had to pose to myself. What am I going to do? Because if we held meetings in the main village, the Dalits would not be able to attend. They would not feel free to attend. And if we held meetings in the Dalit Wada, the others would not come. So there was, I had I had no doubt about the answer. We would work with the Dalits because they are the poorest. So you see, even at that time, it was class which was really in my mind. The Dalits were the poorest, so we work with them. So it's only after working with them that you understand the ramifications of caste, because they reveal to you in every detail from morning to night, day after day, year after year, what they go through with different communities in the village. It is not just one upper caste, lower caste. It is with the Dalit, the Malas with the Madigas with the washermen, the Dalit with the carpenter caste, the Dalit with the Reddy, the Dalit with the Brahmin. The ladder is very intricate, and the ladder is very complex. The second thing was that because I worked with the Dalits, the other people in my life, in my political life, that is largely the left and the feminists, they said, why are you working with Dalits? Why aren't you working with, poor peasants as a whole? And so I had to explain to them what the issue was. And then when the Mandal agitation came up, that's when my world really split into two. Because people who say, we support resistance and protests by the marginalized caste, when it came to Mandal, there was a very clear caste divide. Those who supported Mandal, those who supported new caste categorization, those who did not. So that time, it was as if the left, because the left was still sitting on the fence. The left did not support the Mandal committee demands, was still sitting on the fence and waiting for the agitation to build up, and then jumped on the other side. So it was at that time I realized very clearly that, caste among the Savarnas is unless you pick on it, you can't define it. It is very subtle. They will not speak it out aloud. But it is revealed in so many conversations, and that is when I became aware to forget what Dalits think about their thing. What about how do Savarnas think about caste? Because I think it's very important. We are all the time talking about Dalit victimhood, Dalit agency, how are Dalits suffering. Why don't we talk about how Savarnas think about caste? How is the daily life of Savarnas governed by caste? How is their relationship status, their educational background, their social interactions? How is that defined by caste? I don't know of any work like that which interrogates the Savarna. Of course, you have this Ravikant Kisana's new book, Meet the Savarna, but largely there have never been any interrogations of the Savarnas. So that is when I understood there's a whole new angle about caste which is never revealed because the Savarnas never want to talk about themselves. They would rather get away by talking about, the poor Dalit, the poor untouchable, the poor cobbler or somebody like that. So maybe at about that time, the three worlds began to come together for me.
I do think that there are works which interrogate or which describe upper caste narratives. In Kerala and in South and in the rest of India, I think we just call it mainstream history. Because all other kinds of histories, all other kinds of narratives, they are kind of labeled as Dalit histories or women's histories, and what passes off as mainstream history is Brahmanical history. So I do really think that we have work on, let's say, upper caste histories, just as it's masqueraded as secular history. But then you also did speak about Dalit agency, and very refreshingly in your work, you do talk about the fact that you also learnt a lot from the villages. And my next question is also a borrowed question which have been passed down to me from the wonderful Bansri there. So he was telling me that in your interview which came in a Malayalam journal, you talked about the fact that when you were at Ghaziabad, you wanted to teach Hindi to the Balbigi community there, and they wanted to learn English. And finally, you ended up teaching them English, and you went to those same bastis, the same Balbigi basti, years later, and you kind of learned that they benefited immensely from having learned English, and they had that kind of a perspective that if their children learned English, it would be way better for them. And then I think it's not there in the journal, but it's there in the book, and I found it to be it's quite a lesson, and it's quite endearing that Jogenda's brother, Jogenda was one of the students that she taught, who was himself a Balmiki, and Jogenda's brother gave you rupees 500 and said that I'm giving it as if I'm giving it to a sister. So when you're talking about Dalit agency, there's very little learning happening. It's, of course, it's as if Dalit lives are put under a microscope. And quite often we become objects of study, rather than, the Dalits speaking in their own language, or the Dalits voicing out their own concern. So how can we kind of build bridges between this subject-object dichotomy that we have and the academic-non-academic dichotomy that we have, without actually, people from non-Dalit backgrounds assuming a savior kind of a trope?
It's a difficult question. Now, assuming savior trope is now impossible today. There are enough Dalits to interrogate that stand. If you ask me, no Savarna now wants to write about Dalits, because I publish in Telugu. No Savarna will translate from English to Telugu for me a Dalit text. You please ask somebody from the Dalit community to do it, because if we do it, there'll be a lot of criticism on us saying what caste was she, what caste was he, and we don't want to do it. And by and large, among the literary world in Hyderabad and in Telugu, no Savarna wants to forget even savior trope. There is enough Dalit agency to question that. We start from there. Now the second thing is, can only Dalits write about Dalit experience? I will not agree with that. I think a lot of, I believe in basic humanity. I mean, this is very funny, because this is something I would have laughed at some 50 years ago if somebody had said, I'd said, what old-fashioned shit, this basic humanity. But somewhere we are all human beings. Somewhere we all should be and want to have equal entitlement. We want to relate to each other in a healthy fashion. And so we should be able to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. What is that other person going through? Where can I empathize? So that effort we should never negate. We should always try to be open to other people. And hence, I disagree with many Dalit activists who say nobody should write about us. Yeah, no. There are, in Andhra, we have a strong category which says you shouldn't write about us, but I disagree with that. How do Dalits get out of? I'm thinking Dalits are doing wonderful work. I'm amazed at the kind of energy and spirit which is there in Dalits in not only writing about their lives, but about their agency, about their scholarship, about their history. I think no other community in India over the last, say, 20 years has had that kind of energy and spirit. It is something widely acknowledged but not spoken about. For example, you have the BC movement, the Shudras. The Shudras don't have 1/20th the agency Dalits have. 1/20th. I'm even lower, I would peg it even lower. I think it is also because of a long history of political organization under Baba Sahib Ambedkar that has given Dalits the confidence to speak about, write and interrogate not only their own history, Savarna history as well. So I think that's where, I am located now.
I think that's a wonderful answer. One central thread of your work is, of course, caste and how caste finds a way through multiple movements, whether it is at home or whether it's in the public sphere or within a social movement. But another very interesting thread that I see in your work is that you're also grappling with the question of violence. Where you from someone who was part of the Marxist-Leninist movement at one point of time, who'd read Mao's works, and then you move to Ibrahim Pattanam and you see caste violence, the worst kind of caste atrocities at work. But then your take on violence kind of changes, but then there are also these small anecdotal streaks within the work which suggests, for instance, you at one point of time when a comrade was going to surrender, you suggested that it would be better to kill him off. And then you met him years later and you unburdened yourself to him. And then again during the Ibrahim Pattanam, I am going to call it a moment as a historian. I'm going to take that liberty because if you look at the kind of impact that Ibrahim Pattanam movement had, it's immense. Towards the end, maybe I will also read out another portion, which I think is going to stay with me for a very long time. So even during that moment, there was a time when you went to the fields with with your comrades there, and they had planted castor seeds when the farmers had actually previously sowed jowar seeds there. So you have ma'am and other peasants and farmers majorly belonging to Dalit communities going to the fields, getting hold of their mortars and throwing the mortars into the wells. So this kind of advocacy, a slight advocacy of violence, which for me is very interesting as a feminist as well, because you also have this stereotype of the demure woman. Even within a social movement, you're supposed to be someone who nurtures the movement, who's supposed to be motherly within even a radical movement. So here is a woman that I see through the work, who's also grappling with the idea of violence, but someone who also knows that through a constitutional method, by very cleverly using the provisions of the state, the provisions of the constitution, the provisions of law, you can also make huge impacts. So on the question of violence, where do you locate yourself as well as the ITCVS movement?
I think I'm a violent person myself. If I see somewhere here a man beating his wife, I won't think twice, I'll go there and beat him up first. Or somebody threatening the help in the house, my first thing is I won't think twice. Who is in the wrong is not there. I'll take up a stick or whatever I have in the hand and first stop that and beat that thing. That is my own stand. Oh my God, you're all clapping. Uh,
We agree.
Okay, so I think because the society is so quiet about the oppression and atrocity, and then you want to, analyze it, you want to go into all its aspects, you don't want to take action. Nobody wants to take action to stop what is happening at that point. The academicians will write 200 papers, the activists will carry 200 placards, and the MPs will talk about it in parliament. You stop that bloody thing right there. So I think the very important thing is for us to act according to our conscience as human beings to what is happening in front of you. And if that involves some amount of violence, certainly, I think there's nothing wrong. When somebody is being violent, you need to do, put the screws to stop that violence. But for an organized group to use violence, can you do that for an organized group? If I had 100, Sten guns with me, and there was this very important venue where Mammootty was coming, or the chief minister was coming, and somebody was coming, and with that 100 guns, I could sort of, hold the meeting to ransom and get some demands. Would I do it? I would think twice about it, whether an organized group can use violence. The other point is, it's a very strategic question. We have a very powerful state today, very extremely powerful state today. And with this powerful state, will you be able to fight it with the kind of, strong arm methods that you have? This is not just about the Naxalites. It's also about those from among the Muslim community who think that taking to some form of terrorism will help to focus. I do not think this will work because one, innocent bystanders get a collateral damage, and the second thing is this kind of state at this moment today will not be defeated by the kind of strength that we have. We see what is happening. For us, it is people from Telangana who have gone into Chhattisgarh, and you're reading the newspapers every day where there are mass surrenders and also mass killings. People are coming to surrender, are being killed by police. So, in a sense, this marks the failure of the Maoist movement in Andhra Pradesh so totally as nothing does. The Maoist movement in Andhra Pradesh, I don't know if anybody has said it so categorically. I will say it categorically and very boldly, though they are some of the finest people I know, and but the Maoist movement in Andhra Pradesh has failed totally. This last bit of surrender that you're seeing is really that. So, which really means that we are out to defeat the state. We are out to capture the state. There's no doubt about that. Let's not make a distinction about that. But how we are going to do it is, there are several paths open to us. And the left has never really explored the constitutional path which was shown by Ambedkar. The left may now be reading Ambedkar a little bit, but actually rejected Ambedkar at every step. So I would say an imaginative reading of Ambedkar, imaginative reading of the Constitution, and imaginative reading of the local laws will help the movement go much further than we would have imagined. My work in Ibrahimpatnam was facilitated because my partner was a lawyer. And he was a lawyer who thought with a difference. He said the law will never support us. We will never win if we go to court on something. But what are the loopholes in the law which will help us get breathing space and get us to win something? For example, if we go and plow a bit of land, the landlord will say this is a trespass. It's a trespassing on my land, and file so many cases and get us to court. But if we go and create a law and order situation there, the RDO will impose section 144 and saying two groups are clashing, government will take over the land for the meanwhile. So which means you get the land away from the landlord for the time being and onto neutral territory, after which you can negotiate. So which means there are very many loopholes in the law which we can use. And we do know in the Constitution there are so many provisions for the underprivileged. There are very many provisions which we don't use because the poor, the marginalized, the Dalit, the women don't have the resources. If you want to go to a local police station and say, look, I was beaten and this is what he did, they caused me by my caste name, the police is not likely to file an FIR. So if you have a support system which will help these people negotiate with the law, a lot of things can be done. So I feel that neither the left has never used this method. Left will plant red flags and say, Lal Salam, Zindabad, and we got the land, and as soon as they walk off, police will come back and the land will go back to the landlord. This is what happened with the Maoist movement all over Telangana. And we need people, we need successes. We don't want slogans. We are fed up of slogans. We heard slogans from the last 70 years. If you are saying we are going to fight for education, let us succeed in getting so many percentage of our people educated into jobs. If you are going to say we are fighting for land, let us succeed and get pattas for people. Let us have actual targets and fulfill them. That is the only way you can confront the state, win, and forge new paths. So in that way, where did we go that you were asking the question? I seem to have gone somewhere else.
No,
Violence. So we explore other methods, and by that I think we reduce the necessity of using violence. I would never sort of preclude violence. I would never say no to violence. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can't say no to violence. But you always realize that violence, the backlash on you is also something you have to deal with.
And usually the backlash on the most marginalized will be the worst. I do not know whether you know this, but there was this debate within feminists from Kerala on the question of carcerality, of engagement with the state, particularly with regard to using the state's provisions or NGOs working in tandem with the state's policies or engaging with the states on different levels. So in Black feminist thought, for instance, there's this emphasis on advocating for non-carceral means. Unfortunately, in the case of Kerala or South India or India, we do not have non-carceral forms of engagement. We don't have community networks. Even within the community networks, as you have mentioned, I think towards the last sections of your work, even when community engagement is there, the question of gender is completely sidelined. So when you have the question of carcerality being introduced into the questions of global South feminism, has it been problematic that we have not engaged with non-state networks of power? Or why haven't we thought of other kinds of platforms where we can actually engage or engage with different modalities of power, if at all it is possible? Or, as you very aptly mentioned, the state is an all-powerful entity now. It's very, very difficult for us to move away from state power. But at the same time, you also need to negotiate and constantly mediate with the state and find those loopholes from within the state's legal provisions or the state's legislative provisions. So in a way, you're also modifying the state. Rather than see the state only as this one monolithic behemoth, one can maybe, like in the case of patriarchy, one can also dent the state and reformulate the state's power. Do you think that is possible?
Yes. I think very much possible. In fact, if you see the one standing example of BJP, how it was in 2014 and how it is now, say on the caste question. When parties come to power, they learn that if they don't listen to the voice of the people in some fashion, in some method, they're going to lose a chunk of the votes. And so they reformulate their thinking and they come around. So certainly people's movements, people's articulation changes, dents the state in a big way. Certainly I believe in that. I was thinking when you're talking of non-carceral methods, we have not explored what we call caste panchayats. For us, caste panchayats are a bad name. We think of this Khap panchayat which is there in Haryana and Punjab. But actually, at least among the Dalit communities in Telangana, Kula Panchayat is a caste panchayat. That is, each caste will sit down in a caste panchayat. And in fact, our movement was a caste panchayat. All our decisions were taken in caste panchayat. That is, the Madigas are the majority. So the Madigas sat, other castes also sat. But it was in an open thing. And decisions would be taken, sometimes take 3 to 4 days to take a decision. The punishments were always non-carceral. It was always a revelation to me. My first thing will be beat somebody up, beat that person up, it's problem, or do something, be done. They would sit for 3 days, 4 days. The thing was, both parties should agree to the resolution of the issue. Both parties. It should bring both parties to so that no party goes back to police. Both parties should be satisfied with the resolution. It should be non-carceral. It should be it cannot damage a party for life. That is, if you say, give me a compensation of 1 crore, that fellow is ruined, no? So it should be something which is doable. So that kind of justice was done every day in the caste panchayat. I mean, it could be with two married people having a relationship outside their marriage. It could be with someone stalking a girl from another community, which the parents found objectionable. There were so many issues which were brought to these caste panchayats. The bottom line was that don't go to police. If you go to police, the police will only drive a wedge between us, ensure that they get enough money from both parties, and both will be ruined. Let us sit down together and work out a compromise. It is not as if there wasn't a victim and an aggressor. This was also possible. But even the aggressor was brought into the framework of the community. There was enough discussion. Why did you do what you did? What influenced you? It was a whole, I can't tell you, the process was revelatory for me, because there was a whole discussion on how this took place. So in a way, even the aggressor or the person whom you think is the accused was able to explain or expiate his guilt in a fashion that the victim could understand that this person was mildly repenting. Fully repenting, I don't know, mildly repenting. So this kind of panchayat is also there among Adivasis, even today, in a big way. It may be there in certain Dalit communities which are away from cities, but certainly there among Adivasi communities. I am thinking, no, I haven't read of any studies which have been done about these kind of just local justice measures, which are non-carceral and which also which offer some hope of reconciliation, if not love, between two opposing groups.
That's a wonderful answer. Now, you had mentioned earlier that the biggest struggle that one has is the struggle within one's family. And particularly in your case, I was quite surprised to read that at one point of time, to wear a bra. To wear a bra was thought of as sinful, that to wear a bra one would be branded as a slut. But then coming from that kind of a background and then engaging with a leftist, Marxist-Leninist movement, and then your family's response to it was to also, unfortunately, send you for ECT therapy. But then years later, you come back to your family, you start talking with particularly with your father again. So how for me, and I think for a lot of us who are young feminists, who have to constantly grapple with the kind of politics within the family while also grappling with the larger politics of the leftist movement or the Dalit movement, this is a constant struggle, and it's a struggle that needs to be waged at multiple levels. But you're also someone who also found this niche of reconciliation with your father? Because somewhere you also say that you understand the fact that among your parents' children, you were considered to be the brightest, you were considered to be, quote unquote, the son of the family. So, how was that experience going back after being part of the Marxist-Leninist movement, after being after going to Ghaziabad and after going to Ibrahim Pattanam, and then your father kind of opening himself up to you?
It involves swallowing a lot of pride, because pride teaches you were right, they were wrong, they did all this, they are horrible people. You were right, you fought. So when you reconcile, you swallow your pride. And when you swallow your pride, you learn, what was it? It was nothing. It was just, pride was just, a wisp of smoke. You had to get rid of it a long time before. So forgiving people, after you made your point that this is what I'm going to do, forgiving people should come very naturally to us. See, I think that's part of being human, that we should love people, we should love all people as far as it is possible. And where people have committed mistakes, you can't hold some, indefinite grudge, because holding that grudge only hurts you. It doesn't hurt the other person. The other person doesn't even know you're holding the grudge. It also let go of the grudge and be free and reconcile. It's only pride and ego which comes in the way. That's what I learned. So I say sorry very easily to people. I am also very rude to people. I mean, that's a flip side of it. I say what I have to the face of it. But when someone is hurt, I have no issue at all apologizing. I said, it didn't strike me, but now I know that it has hurt you. I'm very sorry about that. Because I genuinely don't want that person to be hurt. And I think it is only my pride which is standing in the way. So reconciling, I think a lot has to do with swallowing one's pride and ego.
I think that makes sense. Now to just read out the impact of the ITVCS movement, the Ibrahim Pattanam Taluk Vyavasayika Kuli Sangha, impact on Ibrahim Pattanam. About 1,500 bonded laborers were released officially. About 1,420 were released unofficially and repudiated. About 14,000 acres were freed from the control of landlords in Ibrahim Pattanam, Yacharam, Kandukur, Maheshwaram, Hayatanagar, and Chottupal. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the names of the taluks. Assets worth rupees 11,200 crore to 70,000 crore were transferred from landed gentry to landed poor. This is extremely inspirational. That you had a movement in the past, and that too in South India, which have had such a huge impact. I feel that this should be taught to students. This should be part of history textbooks, and so little of it is unfortunately known in other circles. So little of it is known beyond, let's say, Andhra and Karnataka. But do you think that it's a model that can also be replicated elsewhere?
It is not even known in Andhra and Telangana. This was not known till I wrote the book. I never told anybody about what was going there, and would refuse all interviews with press, would refuse. See, I always see that in a movement what happens is the leader is highlighted. So if it is Medha Patkar, then Medha Patkar is all over the news. So if I had agreed to give an interview and talk about what was there, my face would have become the face of the movement. So this story was not really known till the book came out, till I wrote the book. It was not known except in that larger area. In that area and around it, everybody knows, but in Hyderabad, many of my friends didn't know. So when they actually sat down and calculated, somebody said, why don't you monetize it? And so that monetization was done. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. I was a little uncomfortable with that monetization.
No,
Yeah, I know. They said it's such an impact. For me, the impact is because I know how the people were empowered, and I know what kind of strength the movement gave. I mean, I know it for a fact, so I don't need them on. Now, is it possible? I think that's the only single takeaway from the book is that everything is possible. Young people come and ask me, my God, how did you do this? I said, what is there to do it? You just go out there and do it. Take your courage in your hands and do it. Everything requires a little bit of courage. At that time, you should decide, am I willing to put, the policeman is going to maybe beat me, the policeman is going to say something very rude to me, or he's going to totally undress in front of me, or somebody is going to put me in jail, or maybe at some point somebody maybe even try to kill you. I can't think of worse things than that. Yeah, and people have suffered far more worse things. Sitting in the house, you suffer far worse things. You sit in the house, somebody can come and rape you and kill you. So what the bloody hell? Go out, do something and get some. And actually, if you're bold enough and you're smart enough, maybe nothing will happen in that way. Though, of course, there will always be damage. So I say it is possible. It is so possible to do anything you want. That is the only single takeaway from the book. That everything is possible. The thing is, you should not be afraid. You should take your courage in your hands and you should say, if I want to do it, I will do it. And if you want to do it, you can do it. That's the takeaway from the book.
That's wonderful, and that's why we should be reading this work. Because it truly, let me tell you this from the bottom of my heart, it will truly inspire you. And I hope that excerpts from this book or the book itself becomes part of our syllabus, that it will continue to inspire generations that not just certain things, all things are possible, particularly if you put your heart to it. And it will, and the central code of social justice that you have running through this work, where Gita is not just interrogating her family, she's not just interrogating the leftist movement, she's not just interrogating the Marxist-Leninist movement, she's also interrogating herself. You see her grow as an activist, you see her engaging with the theme of caste, engaging with the theme of gender in multiple sorts of ways throughout the work. And for me, it sort of seems like you're reading a chronicle or you're reading someone's diary. But something that I couldn't believe is the fact that all of this was written later. It seemed as if, when you read through the first sections of the book where you're talking about your 20s and early 30s, it seems as if someone who is 20 and 30 is writing it. It doesn't seem as if you wrote it with hindsight. She also pulls you in, the language is so lucid that the book actually pulls you into it, and you kind of, you move through Hyderabad and you go to Ibrahim Pattanam with her. So it's also a very evocative book that way. It's kind of a call for us to be part of the revolution, and while being part of the revolution, how you can also have that revolution of love within the family, the revolution of love within your intimate circles as well. And on that note, I think we can move to audience questions now.
The book is also being translated, by the way, into Malayalam. Devika is doing the translation, and hopefully DC Books will publish it.
Have you, by any chance, ever been associated with our Ajita Chechi, K. Ajita?
Oh, I came last month to Kozhikode to attend the centenary celebrations. No, we heard of her. I don't know her at all, which is why when I got a phone call some 2 months ago saying I'm Ajita from Kozhikode and I want you to come for this meeting, I said yes immediately. Because when we were joining the movement at that time, Ajita was heroine for us. She was this 19-year-old or 17-year-old who had stormed the police station. And there are many 40-year-old Ajitas, by the way, in Telangana. Many 40-year-olds. Everybody named their child Ajita after her. So she was such a... But we didn't know anything. At that time, you see, there was not much information. We knew this single fact that this girl had done that. So yes, certainly, there's such a connect that when she said, will you come? I said, yes, immediately I will come.
But you're absolutely right. There's striking similarity. When we had the centenary celebration for Mandagini Narayanan, there was this conversation between them. And it was as if Ajita was talking to Ajita or Gita was talking to Gita.
Hi ma'am, my name's Archana. So I'm also like a young person who's worked in the NGO scene, in movements, in education. So my question is around leadership. leadership is quite heartbreaking to work under, specifically because, like you said in the book, also you're talking about how it can become about power and acquiring it and keeping it, like gatekeeping it in movements and kind of dividing the people who are passionate for the movement, working for it. So I want to understand, how do you move past that heartbreak of people who you trust, because you're like, okay, we all have the same values. Then you realize, like with Mr. C in the book, that there are different sides to leaders when you're working with them, and there's a lot of abuse that might also happen in these kind of moments. So how do we kind of move from that, move forward, is a question. Yeah. Thank you.
Moving forward from knowing that someone is abusing power is not a problem, because you fight it. Once you fight it, you've got rid of the problem. Once you call that person out, the problem is gone. So the first step is to pick up courage and to call that person out. What happens afterwards in movements like this is you get thrown out. And then the movement is like your family. It's your family. It's your father, your mother, your brother, your friend. Everything is there. Once you're thrown out of the movement, then you're likely to have a nervous breakdown. Then you pick yourself up and carry on. Life carries on. What else is there? So, and number of heartbreaks, you get strong. So it's good to, I think it's always good to suffer. It's only through suffering you learn anything. It's only when I've suffered, at that moment, of course, last thing you want to do is to suffer. But after that, you've passed that stage and you've healed. And then you say, my God, I'm this strong person now. And so after every bout of suffering, I found myself, stronger and stronger. So I say now, okay, I write it down, I stick it up all over the house. Okay, you're going through currently some problem. Just remember that 2 months after, you expect this to last 2 months. 2 months after, you're going to be the superwoman. I write it all down to remind myself.